So with your clients, I want to walk through the 4 steps to learning. And let's just talk about how you see this playing out with your clients and how that sort of fits. So in the beginning, Abraham Maslow, kind of the father of this 4 steps to learning, and a lot of other people played a role in it, but yeah, he's kind of the guy at first, right? So 4 steps to learning, the S represents the learning curve, right? And the first step is unconscious incompetence, right? And this happens for everybody, anytime, anywhere. When at the very beginning, you don't know what you don't know.
Sure.
And I talk to people and I say, this is one of the hardest things that you could deal with, because it's not in your control to move out of this space, right? It takes some outside stimulation, something else that has to spark you to make you aware of something.
Right.
And there's tons of reasons why we become aware of things. And but when it comes time to managing your own life or deciding where you're going to go with your business, that's where you might say, I have to go talk to somebody else to figure out, because you don't know what you don't know. Right?
And to speak to this point, when I said that our clients get 50 pieces of email a day telling them they have to buy something, or they have to subscribe to something, or they have to do something for their business, or their business is not going to succeed, that triggers in their mind, I have 50 things today that I have unconscious incompetence about. Which ones of those should I really deal with? And it scares them, and it makes them nervous because there's so much of it.
Yeah, ton, and it doesn't stop, right? Every television, every billboard, every email, everything does that. Now, at some point, ideally, it's something you want, right? You are informed, you become knowledgeable and aware of something, and you instantly transport to the next position, which is conscious incompetence. And so now you know something exists. You just don't know about it, you don't know how to do it. But at least now it's in your control. You can decide, I want to go learn some more, I want to do something, I want to become more competent about that, right? So if you go engage some services, you read something, you talk to somebody, you can become competent. And the next stage is a place called conscious competence. And conscious competence is a place where you know what it is, and you know how it works, but maybe you're not very good at it.
Sure.
And the story I like to tell is and I think there's a couple stories I tell about, did you ever learn how to drive a manual transmission car? And for most people, it's sort of, that first week was pretty rocky. They knew all the rules, they knew all the process, but they have to practice it and get some feedback to get to the next level, which is called unconscious competence. And so once you've reached that unconscious competence level, then you're proficient, right? So one of the things I'm looking at today that I see this happening in all the time is internet marketing, right? So internet 10 years ago really wasn't around. And so now what we've got is thousands of people that are, a lot of those emails have to do with internet marketing,
right.
Whether it's SEO or social media, et cetera, et cetera. And I work with my clients and I say, hey, listen, we need to be aware of this kind of stuff, but we don't want to jump into everything. And it may not be you that has to learn how to do that. At some point, you have to figure out, how do I engage some additional resources or different resources? Because if you're doing that, if you're off doing that thing, is that your highest and best use?
Sure.
Right? So we can help people guide them through that. So once you've gone through this learning curve, right, and if we go back to the hiring process, right, and you'd mentioned some things earlier where we talked about making sure that you know exactly what it is that you want to hire, the position.
Right. Yeah, there's a couple things that we do. We make sure that before our clients, or we hire people for our clients, that we have a really clear understanding of what it is that the client wants. What does that position require? What are you expecting from the person? What do you want for their education? What do you want their background to be? What do you want from them? How close do you want them to live? Whatever aspects that they need for that client, we make sure that that's mapped out very clearly. And then instead of saying we need a project manager and put that on Craigslist or someplace, we're very specific. We want somebody who does these 5 things. Don't send us a resume unless you do those 5 things.
That's the specifications. I mean,
Sure.
You wouldn't build a building without a set of plans and specs.
Absolutely. And then when those people come in and they finally get hired, then we get into the conscious competence and the training of them. I wanted to go back to the unconscious competence for just a second. I had a friend who had a stroke a few years ago, and he came to me and he said, I can't use one side and I have these problems. And I had read a book that talked about the more you do something with one hand or the other, it becomes a habit and you don't think about it anymore. So I had the conversation with him, and a few months later he came to me and said, I was doing an activity with one hand and now I'm doing it with the other hand, and I don't even think about doing it with the other hand. I think the unconscious competence is I actually know what I'm doing. I'm doing it unconsciously now. I'm doing it so well that I don't need a lot of outside input. They may have gotten it in step 2 and 3, but now we know what we're doing.
Yeah, from practice and feedback, we get, it's just,
Right.
and I'm a golfer, so a golf coach comes in and says, you know, grip, change, do this, right? And at first you're in the conscious competence, but you know what you're supposed to do, right? But the idea of doing that without having to think about it is not possible. That comes from practice and feedback.
The brilliant part of this is by the time you get to stage 4, whether you acquired help in stage 3, by the time you get to stage 4, your mind can now be free because all the outside noise, all those other 50 emails that were trying to sell you or promote you to do something, now you've made a decision, you've cleared all the rest of that out of your mind and you're moving forward.